Hey guys, and today I'd like to talk about the film that I saw the other day, Wonder Woman. Now I'm going to start by just making very clear that I'm not the most well-versed person in the history of the character. I'm not a massive DC fan in comparison to how much I like Marvel. That being said, was this movie the movie that could break the curse of DC? Because let's be honest, the cinematic offerings of the DC universe so far have been kinda lackluster. What we have is DC and Warner desperately trying to catch up to what Marvel and Disney are doing. Marvel have had massive successes. They're now the largest and most successful cinematic franchise ever. So naturally, Hollywood is taking comic book movies seriously now. You know, gone are the days when if you liked Superman or went to go and see the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, you were seen as a bit of a nerd. Now comic books and comic movies are mainstream. So DC wanted a slice of action. Their first branch into that, well, we all know how well Green Lantern went. They then rebooted the cinematic universe with Man of Steel. And actually, despite my general dislike for the character, it was a pretty reasonable film. It told a story, it told it well, and, it had a clear sense of direction about it. So naturally, everybody was super excited when its sequel, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, came up. Oh dear God, what did I watch? That film was just bad for many, many reasons. The plot was flaky, weird, didn't make sense. It tried to cram far too much in, and what the hell was the idea behind making Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor? It was just weird. But there were some good things about that film. Despite the initial online reaction when it was announced that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman, Batflick, as he was often referred to online, actually turned out to be pretty damn good. You know what? I like him. I thought he was great as a bitter, more seasoned and worn out Batman who'd lost a lot of his ideology because he'd felt that justice was this kind of unattainable thing. But probably the most enjoyable thing about this film was Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Let's face it, the best scene in the movie is the scene where she joins the fight against Doomsday. And that epic guitar riff that is her theme tune kicks in, and you're just like, yeah, Wonder Woman's here and she's kicking ass. So naturally, people were excited for her solo movie. In between, of course, Batman vs. Superman and Wonder Woman came Suicide Squad, which again failed to deliver and was a disappointment. I would argue it's not as disappointing as Batman vs. Superman, but still quite disappointing. Definitely it felt like DC were trying to cash in on the Guardians of the Galaxy vibe by taking characters we didn't know, and then they just somehow fluffed it. So naturally, going into Wonder Woman, people were cautious. DC's track record so far was somewhat... Well, it was more twists, turns, and wonky than a roller coaster, let's be honest. And then the trailer dropped for Wonder Woman. And the first glimmer of hope about what this film could be became apparent. Because the trailer did exactly what a trailer should do. It whet your appetite, but it didn't actually give away everything in the trailer, which was the mistake that DC had done with Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. They put way too much into the trailer, and we went in knowing exactly what was going on. Wonder Woman, on the other hand, it told us what the film was going to be about, and it kind of showed off some nice action scenes to see Gal Gadot doing her Wonder Woman thing, but it never really kind of gave the game away. So, it left us feeling a little bit more excited, But did the film actually live up to it? And the answer in short is yes. I went into that film, as I said, because of the previous performances by Warner DC, with a degree of low expectation, despite the fact that Wonder Woman had been one of the things I enjoyed about Batman vs Superman, and I generally seem to enjoy Gal Gadot's performance as her. I wasn't going to hope for too much, and I was pleasantly surprised. Here was a film that, again, rather than trying to weave in lots of characters, focused on telling the story of one character and telling it well. We get her backstory, which is interesting. We get the situation that she's in, and the characters that she interacts with were mostly likeable. The villains were a bit meh, but the supporting characters were enjoyable. This, aside from the fact that this also had the legacy of poor performance from other DC movies, it also was DC's equivalent of Thor. Because just like Thor was for Marvel, you were playing not just with the idea of superheroes, but with gods and ancient mythology, and how that fits in with the world. This time, of course, we're doing Greeks rather than Norse, but again, you've still got all of the issues of how you're going to make it work. And it actually works, and works rather well. This is despite the fact that the origin story they've gone for in this particular one is that, as well as having the Amazonians, is that in some iterations of the comics, Diana, or Wonder Woman, is an Amazonian. In other ones, she's a little bit more special than that. And that's the route they went with. They went with the route that she was sculpted from clay and brought to life by Zeus. Which you don't expect to hear in a movie and take it seriously. But you know what? Nobody kind of cracks up. It's not a joke. They play it with sincerity. It works. Also, great to see the lasso of truth in use. Something that some people said, oh, they'll never use that in the film. Oh, they absolutely do. It actually is quite a useful thing at numerous points in the film. I'm feeling a bit more optimistic about DC. I think when they tell solo character stories like this, they get it right. And I think, had this been a complete failure of a movie, it probably would kill any enthusiasm people have for Justice League. I'm personally not sold on Justice League. The trailer doesn't do it for me. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about Cyborg to really care. Heck, the Flash can be an interesting character, but I'll be really interested to see what they do with it and what Ezra Miller brings to it. And of course, despite the fact he's not appeared in trailers, we do know that Superman is going to be back at some point during the course of the movie. So, for me, for Justice League to do well, it has to be well written. It has to give the characters equal screen time. And for me, I feel that Batman, Wonder Woman and Aquaman really have to sell that movie. Because otherwise, I'm just not fussed. The next solo movie they're talking about doing is the Batman one, which the reports we're hearing is disappointing and flaky. So, DC Cinematic Universe hasn't been saved, but it's on better footing than it was. Now, the success already of this Wonder Woman movie means that she's probably going to get a sequel, it's probably going to be modern day, and there is the potential to bring in the other characters. I hope they don't do that. I hope they focus on telling a story that is Wonder Woman-centric about what Wonder Woman is doing. I think the film will be better for it, and I think, it showcases a character that hasn't had enough screen love. We've seen lots of movies over the last 2 decades of Batman and Superman, nearly 3 decades in fact, and those are characters that even if you're not familiar with the comics, everybody knows. But Wonder Woman, where's she getting the love? Well, she's finally getting it now, and I hope that they carry on with that. Now, the one thing I will say in Warner's defence is that they've been looking to catch up on DC, but they've actually, on Marvel, but they've actually done something that Marvel hasn't now. They've given us a film with a solo character lead. a female solo character lead, should I say, and they've not weakened that character with a love interest. Yes, there's a sort of implied chemistry between her and Steve Travers, but it doesn't ever diminish her as a character. As she rightly says,
what I do is not up to you.
She doesn't need his approval. She doesn't need anybody else to tell her what to do. And so, this has now set the bar. Marvel have been talking on and off for a while about doing Black Widow. That looks like that's going to be probably somewhere in phase 4. Before that, of course, we have the Captain Marvel movie with Brie Larson. So now, Marvel now have to look at the success of Wonder Woman with a female director. I'm not saying it requires a female director, but they certainly need to have a director that understands and invests in the character, so that when they give us a solo movie on a female character, they don't cheapen it. DC have set the bar and they've set it high, Marvel. The ball is in your court. To everybody else, if you've not seen Wonder Woman already, go and see it. I think it's actually a pretty solid superhero movie. I don't think it's up there with the likes of Winter Soldier, which I would regard as or Watchmen. I would regard both those movies as being 10 out of 10 superhero movies. But I'll give Wonder Woman a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it, and I would watch it again. Did you enjoy it? Have you seen it? What do you think? You can leave your comments in the description below, and if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to like and give it the old thumbs up. Heck, you can subscribe and then you can find out when I talk about other movies and all of the other nerdy things that I like to talk about, because, hey, comic books, cosplay, video games, roleplay games and all that, that's my jam. Anyway, I'll leave you guys for today, and I will simply tell you to stay nerdy.